Hi, and welcome to this video of Dynamics 365 Talk, where I'll be discussing the 2020 Release Wave 1 features, which came out for preview on February 3rd this year. In this video, I'll be discussing the new functionality and updated features for Dynamics 365 Sales Insights and Field Service. But before we get started, let me just introduce myself. My name is Dion Taylor. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to scan that QR code. Or you can take a look at my blog at D365Goddess.com or follow me on Twitter at D365Goddess. So let's get started. We have a lot to cover today. I'm going to talk about some generic enhancements, the sales insights updates like conversational intelligence, the new assistant, the auto capture, and who knows whom. And then we're going to dive into field service, and there's so much in there, as you can see. So I just want to go ahead and get started. So first, let's take a look at some of the generic enhancements. So these enhancements were listed under customer service, but I found that these are more generic since we get the same capabilities when we're using the Sales Hub. Now, this feature allows users to format their notes. So no more boring notes. We can now actually change the font colors, we can add bulleted lists, and so much more. So I bet the note taker in you is going to have a lot of fun with this. The other thing that I noticed is the timeline enhancements. So one huge thing, I think, is that users can now perform a keyword search in the timeline. So again, it will actually search through everything on that timeline. I actually did a search for an email that was related to a contact record, and I did that search from the account record, and I was still able to pull up and find that email that was related to that contact record. So that's very nice, being able to get to that search very quickly. And then you can also see that it's very obvious that if you have certain items that are overdue, that you can kind of see that immediately because it has that red color on there, as you can see. And then there's an additional filter as well, so that you can filter to only show system records or user records. So here you kind of see all of those different areas, right? Number one is that search records bar, then you can take notes, then you can add info and activities. That's that 3 button, that little plus button where you can add that information. You can filter by clicking on number 4. There's some additional commands under the ellipse there. And then you can see by 6, that is where you can see the status of that activity. Then we have the icons, number 7, right? So you can kind of see what type of activity that is. And then the date and time as well is listed on that. The ability to filter now on, like, for example, contains data and does not contain data, that's back. So we were kind of missing that. I got a lot of comments from people that are like, hey, you know what? Unified interface is great, but I cannot filter on those types of things. Contains data, does not contain data, etc. So that's back. And there's actually a lot more filter capabilities in this release. So for example, when you filter on a date field, you're going to now see all of the date filtering options that we also have in advanced find. So you can use on or off after this date, this month, this year, etc. And the lookup filter or the filter for the lookup fields also have been enhanced. You can now just start typing the name of a particular record, so you don't have to like scroll back up and down anymore. So let's dive into a demo. So as you can see, here we are in an account record, and I wanted to pull up the filter real quick so you can see that you can now also filter by system, those auto post, right? Or just post by users. So that's new. You can also see pretty quickly, right, that the statuses here of some records that are overdue, they are colored red, so they kind of pop on that screen. So I kind of like that. And then I also wanted to show you, I actually have an email in here from Angel where, as you can see here, he's emailing me back and he says, have a great day. So I'm just going to do a keyword search Have a great. There we go. And now you can see, right, that those emails that contain those words, have a great, is now coming up. Then I also wanted to show you some filtering. So I am going to my customer service hub and my cases, because I have a lookup in here. I'm not going to use the customer lookup for this particular demo because that is a multi-entity field, so that works a little bit different. I do have category lookups, so let me just go ahead and click here on filter by, and as you can see, I can just start typing and then it starts showing me those records from in here. If I look on a particular date, I can filter, as you can see, right, all of these options that we also have in advanced find. And then lastly, just take a look here at customer. We can do contains data, does not contain data, and that was kind of missing in the previous version. So all of that is back. So I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. So let's talk about Sales Insights, which probably most of you know that is an add-on that you can purchase with your Dynamics 365 instance. Now, in this release, sales organizations can set up custom call recording solutions that work with Dynamics 365 Sales Insights. Customers using Dynamics 365, the channel framework for their telephony needs, can now record those calls and use them with something that is called conversation intelligence, which sounds great, but what exactly does it do, right? Well, once we push the recordings into the system, this feature helps managers to understand customer attitudes and sentiments based on vocal patterns and nuances of speaking tones. The system can analyze the conversation that took place and visualize the customer sentiment directly on that call record. Now, this functionality isn't there yet. The public preview is going to be in April 2020. So I found this screenshot. Obviously, again, it's not there yet, so I can't really demo this. Excuse me, but I kind of enjoyed this one. You have the easy access to conversation, and what this actually will give users the ability to view call summary information within that phone call activity. Then we have access to conversational insights and highlights, and what that means is that within that phone call, users have the ability to play that call back, review the transcript, action items, etc., right? All of that is going to be available directly in that phone call activity. And then the next best actions and highlighted information, the Dynamics 365 Assistant Studio can be used to present those next best action cards. Then we're going to have the Dynamics 365 Assistant. And this is going to be in public preview in September of 2020 as of now. That's what the documentation is saying today. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the assistant. So the relationship assistant is now called Dynamics 365 Assistant. At least that's what it referred to in Microsoft's documentation. So that's kind of what I assume that means. And it has a new updated user interface with a brand new look and feel. Now, this new layout shows the content of the card better, and users can take action directly from within the card without having to navigate away. The cards also will be shown grouped by type, so they'll be easier to find. So for instance, cards that show tasks or meetings that are due today will be shown in the notification section, while predictive cards will be filed under Insights. And users will have the ability also to drill down to the details of a card if they need to do so. Then we have auto capture. So as part of 2019 release 2, Microsoft released a new version of auto capture for public preview. So that's happening right now. So by incorporating AI capabilities, mapping of captured activities to the appropriate record has been improved. And for example, if there's new contexts that are mentioned in some of those activities, they're going to be automatically detected. And these capabilities will become generally available as part of the 2020 release wave 1. So, in order to make sure that everybody in an organization has control over their personal information, Who Knows Whom now supports a more granular privacy control for everybody. So, Office 365 users can control the connection graph inclusion with opt in and opt out controls, and they can choose whether their identity is always shared or if it's hidden until the access has been given. So that means that users can stay anonymous, right? Their identity could be revealed if that permission is requested and then granted, obviously. Another big thing is that this is going to be available now worldwide. So there is not a lot in this particular demo because a lot of that stuff that we just mentioned is not going to be until later. But I did want to show you the auto capture preview. So if I click on here, activity suggestions, this is where you will be able to see a list of those suggestions. And let me go to my current environment because there, as you can see, I do have data in there. And then if you click on context suggestions, you will see that as well. And what you can do here is you can see that it says edit and save. So I can create a new contact from that suggestion. And if I go to activity suggestions, if I click on that and I click here, edit and save, I can decide where I want that activity to be tracked, right? So it could be an opportunity or whatever record we want to. And then I wanted to show you the sales assistant that looks a little bit new here on the form. So the data just renders a little bit different. Let's just wait for those insights to load. And here it is. That's that insights area here that, as you can see, is a lot cleaner. I can just go ahead and click here on show all. And as you can see, it just completely expands that section of the assistant. Now let's dive into field service. So incident types are a way for organizations to standardize work, right? So this means the services and the parts that are needed to complete the work. And then obviously also we have an estimated duration. Incident type suggestions analyzes completed work orders to make improvements in the accuracy of those incident types. So this could be, again, the duration of a work order, the parts that are actually consumed for an incident type, etc. So this feature provides suggestions based on that historical data. And then IoT alerts, as those come into the system, it helps to have the system provide, again, suggestions on how, for example, to treat the alert, right? So maybe suggesting a priority or suggesting an incident type. Suggestions are also based on service history and past actions. Now, Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based service that focuses on mobile device management and mobile application management. With Intune, administrators can roll out the field service mobile application to their iOS and Android field technicians via standard Intune infrastructure and control. So now we currently have a full integration with Microsoft Intune. And we are moving a lot of the automation to the Power Automate flows. So think about existing workflows such as agreement process maintenance, right? Those are, again, being migrated to use Power Automate with the added benefit, obviously, for solving more complex scenarios, so such as change of record ownership, etc. So flows are designed to allow change of ownership while, again, avoiding service disruption for our customers. This feature provides integration between Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, and Dynamics 365 Field Service for warehouse, payment type, and shipment methods. Obviously, it leverages the common data model and the common data service. It also aligns the asset entity models between field service and supply chain management to enable technicians to complete asset management related tasks while using field service. Aligning the customer asset entity across both field service and supply chain management asset capabilities really helps in unlocking the full capabilities of field service scenarios for asset management customers and the capabilities of asset management for field service customers. Microsoft is working on a complete new version of the schedule board, enhancing both the user experience and the performance as well. If you actually go to the article that I wrote about this particular topic, then you will find a link there that you can sign up to get early access to this next generation schedule board. Again, this is just for testing, so this is not for production environment. So keep that in mind as well. And then we have a public preview that starts in April. Again, if you want to preview this right now, you can sign up for that, whether or not you're a partner or if you're a customer. Again, the links are on my website. Now, this is interesting because this calendar has not been touched since version 3.0. So I think this facelift was about time. So this is a new and simplified also experience for maintaining the working hours. The experience is accessible and consistent with unified interface experiences. So additionally, the calendar control will be a PCF control, meaning that partners and customers can enable scenarios to modify resources working hours from outside entity forms and views, like, by using a Canvas app. Now, this one's interesting. So you might have scenarios where certain work has to be completed in a particular order, right? So for example, a technician might have to install an electrical connection before installing something else, right? So requirement dependencies allow organizations to complete that work in a specific order. Requirement dependencies can be scheduled in a specific order by relating them through a predecessor and a successor dependency relationship. So work that relies on a series of tasks dependent on one another can now be linked together as those predecessors and successors, and then they can be booked through the resource scheduling optimization engine. Now, keep in mind, if you don't have RSO, which is an add-on for field service, you cannot test this or use this, right? Because again, this is working with RSO only. Field Service now comes with an out-of-the-box resource scheduling Power BI dashboard, and the dashboard can be accessed by navigating to the resources area in Field Service, and from there it's going to be visible under Analytics. And the nice thing about this is that what Microsoft is going to do is they're going to create these dashboards, which again, they're built on Power BI. And at some point in time, when they're completely done with building that, they're going to actually release those PBX files so that people can go ahead and start making some changes and editing those existing reports. So that's a great new feature. Now, again, if you are an RSO user, then there's actually two additional dashboards available. One of them is called RSO Admin, and the other one is called Optimization Summary. Now, I'm excited about this one. I'm not sure if any of you have used Resco Inspections, which is a great product. So now it looks like Microsoft is coming out with their own inspections themselves. According to the documentation, inspections should be available for public preview in April of 2020. And after I was reading about it, so it looks like we're going to have some similar functionality that RESCO inspections has as well. Users will be able to create inspections through a designer, attach it to a work order, and then complete it through the mobile app. So I'm very excited about this one. So this is another one of those features that we wanted for quite some time, and I'm so glad that Microsoft is listening to their partners and their customers. So timesheets, right? This utilizes the same timesheets entity that is used with Dynamics 365 Project Service. And no, you do not need to have Dynamics 365 for Project Service installed in order to use timesheets with Field Service, obviously. So we're going to be able to capture timesheets, right, with this after a work order has been completed. So we can configure Field Service to create these timesheets automatically from booking timestamps, or we can have the techs enter them manually. Now, again, you can configure this by navigating to the settings area. Under the general section, you can navigate to that Field Service settings and then open that Field Service settings record. And then you'll see that time entry tab where you can access that configuration. In this release, admins will have the ability to configure Dynamics 365 Field Service to create timestamps at a more granular level. So today, timestamps are created when a field service status changes. And with this new feature, we get the ability to configure the system to create timestamps when a booking status change occurs. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. Now, before release wave 1, timestamps were only created when a work order's status would change. Now, this release allows customers to configure creating those timestamps on the change of a booking status. And if we have the system configured to automatically create timesheets based on those timestamps, you can understand how important that is, right? So let's take a look at that. So you can see here, if you look at these booking statuses, right, you'll notice that there is an associated field service status for each individual booking status record. So these are the statuses that the field technician picks from when they update their booking, right? So in this example, you'll see that there are 2 booking statuses that have the related in progress field service status associated with them, right? That is the working and the area setup booking statuses that you see highlighted here. Now let's talk about this scenario. So a field tech changes your status to area setup and then 15 minutes later to working. Now, if the system is configured to create a timestamp when the field service status changes, only one timestamp will be created, right? Because both area setup and working have the same field service status, which is in progress. Now, if the system is configured to create a timestamp when the booking status changes, 2 timestamps will be created, one for area setup and one for the working booking status, because at this point the system doesn't care what the related field service status is. And this was interesting. I actually saw a button that said new auto numbering, opt in for auto numbering. So I figured, let me just give you guys a little bit of feedback on that as well. I have not tried that yet, but basically you have a pop-up window that shows you what the benefits are that you could see here on this slide. Guaranteed unique record naming, fewer gaps in the names of affected entities, yada, yada, yada. And then it also will show you some of the changes and the warnings if you opt in for this. So the changes are that the auto number name will only be assigned after a record is saved. Configuring each name's format will be managed in a dialog, and when importing an entity as a separate solution from one org to another, the auto numbering format definition for the entity will be carried across as part of the solution. Now, keep in mind you want to make sure that you realize that once you opt in, you can't go back. And also, if you're going to opt in, you want to make sure that this is actually happening when there is no activity in the organization, because while this is happening, the creation of new records might fail. So you want to do this when nobody is touching the system. And it shouldn't take very long to complete, but like I said, make sure that nobody is in that org while you're doing that. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you guys is that new resource work hour calendar. So I'm just going to open up here, as you can see, my bookable resource. And if I click on show work hours, here is our new calendar. Fancy. And I can go ahead and click on that, and you can kind of see, right, all of that information that I'm getting. If I double click, I can update that. Oops. Right here, edit this event, all events in the series, and you will have here this area where you can update that work calendar. Now let's go back to Field Service and show you that resource scheduling dashboard. So I am going to the resources area, and then under analytics you see here this report. And now I can start to maybe say the last 12 months. You can put your filtering in here, as you can see, by resource type, resource, etc. And here it is. And then obviously you can just start like clicking into some of this as well, filter some of this stuff out, right, etc. Now let's take a look at some of that configuration. If you go to the settings area and you open up that field service settings record, so here you can see, right, your time entry. You can auto generate that from booking timestamps, or you can have them manually fill it out. And then here, that time cost actual source could be booking journals on post of work order or work order time entry approval. What that means is that, okay, my time entry is being created, and then it still needs to be approved. So if I go back here, and I go back here to service, time entries. So as you can see, these are my time entries that were automatically created as soon as this particular work order was completed. So then you can just go ahead and maybe, reassign this to somebody, have them, approve this, etc. And that's it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that when you are creating a time off request, that also creates a time entry. And then if you have your resource set to need approval for that, then again, that timesheet would also need to be approved. And then lastly, I could have done this earlier when I was in settings, but let's just navigate back here real quick to that field service record. You will see here the opt-in to auto number from here. So if I click on that, right, this is what it tells you. Warnings, right? Make sure you do this when there's no activity. I can just click opt-in, and then it will start using that auto number. And then lastly, right here, my timestamp frequency. What do we want to do that on? The booking status change or the field service status change. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, hit that like button and make sure you check back again for another video. Thanks so much, and until next time.